Hello, everybody. This is Alejandro, and I am recording right now. I am going to be doing a tutorial inside of Maya, and I am going to be looking at doing the Hello World exercise for scripting in Python. I want to look at some of the interface. Before I go too far, I want to share out this stream so that you guys have access to be able to find it. I am doing this kind of in the middle of the night, and I doubt too many people are going to actually be here. But let me share it really quick. Going live now, and I'll paste the link. Copy, share, and then let me do that on my CGI nerd page, and I can just paste all of that back in there. There we go. I should be able to be live now. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the programming interface really quick for Maya doing Python. So by default, you have a mail command here. If you wanted to script in Python over here, you can switch over to Python code there. You also have a script editor here inside of Maya. And the Maya interface. Hey Clint, how's it going? I am doing some programming today. I have the interface here open, kind of showing you guys a little bit of something of how to do a simple one-line piece of code. It's just going to say hello world. The Python window down here in the bottom, you can type, and you can type Python code into here. And if we were to do something like print, and in parentheses and in a quote, hello world, and push enter on the numeric keypad, that should run that code, and we have the hello world code that was ran there, and we can see that it holds, creates the hello world right there as well. It is kind of the first step of programming to be able to get a single line of printed code to work. So that is the first step. You can also do that same line of code here. So if we do print hello world, and again, it's inside of parentheses and inside of single quotes in order for it to work. Here you can actually see that it is color-coded. Let me make this a little bit bigger to be easier for you guys to see. So if you want to make your text bigger inside of Maya, you have to push Control key down and middle mouse button scroll, and that will let you make your code bigger. So if I were to highlight this and push enter on the numeric keypad, it runs that as well, and we get the hello world here. Typically when you're getting into Maya, yeah, I probably should be sleeping, BK42. I just really wanted to get this video done before my class tomorrow so that my students have access to it. So that's why I'm up this late. And it's easy for me to record in the middle of the night when my daughter Penny is asleep. So a lot of times when you see actions that you're doing, so let's say we created a sphere. So I have a 3D sphere here in the environment. When I actually did that, you see on the bottom section here, we have a text that comes out. And Clint's evolved past the stage of needing sleep. That's awesome. I wish that was the case for me. I am very much in need of sleep, like all the time. I'm always tired for some reason. But like I was saying, when you create a sphere here, it creates an output text here. But when we run this hello world text, you can see it doesn't output here, and it'd be nice if we could actually do that. So a way to be able to do that is we have to import some modules. One of the modules we have to do is import the system module, which will give us access to kind of back-end computer stuff, access to the interface of the computer. And we also need access to the operating system. So that's import OS. The system, like it's the system files and things like that. The OS is the operating system. So now we can do kind of a single line of code that will actually output hello world, and it will do it both in this console window here and in the output line here as well. Hey NatureBound, how are you? Just going over some like first lesson for Python scripting inside of Autodesk Maya 2018 today. So here I can do the line of code. The thing that I need to call is the system, which I imported, and the bit of code that I need is std. So that's standard out, because we're outputting, and what do we want to output? We want to write. And now that we've done that line of code, we can actually do hello world like we did before. And let me make sure that I have that properly spaced out. So now let's run this code again, selecting everything. I selected everything with Control A and then push enter on the numeric keypad. And it says invalid syntax. So let's see what I did wrong. It's definitely with this line. So typically if I mess something up like this, I'll go really quick and just put the line of code that I messed up. stdr right. Okay. No, I did that right. So let's double check in Google, see what came up. Because we used the print version and then now we're doing std outright. Oops. Open up Maya again. Oh, because I didn't highlight everything. Is that why it was? Yeah. So I only highlighted this single line of code. And when I try to run that by itself, the first time it gave me an error because I never imported the system and the operating system modules. So when you highlight something in the code and you push enter on the numeric keypad, it will only run that single line of code. So once it's actually imported the sys module and the OS module, we actually it gets cached into memory, so you don't need to import it over and over again. But if you do run it, Python actually goes into the background and sees that it's already been opened, and it doesn't open extra copies, filling up your memory. So that is a really cool thing about Python. So when I run it now, you can see that it prints the word hello world here. And then it also prints the word hello world here. So let's see. Editing photos. You guys are just like me editing photos. I had photos for sale month. So it looks like you guys are having a little conversation, enjoying learning experience of it all. I couldn't make any money with a gold mine in my backyard. So that's kind of the more robust way, so that we get a piece of text here, and we get in the console and in the output window when we run this hello world script. So let's take this one step further, and I am going to create a piece of geometry. It's actually going to be nerves curves that we can manipulate into being geometry eventually. But that way we have something in the 3D window that is also the hello world text, rather than just doing it in the console here. So I'm going to keep this line, but we need to be able to make sure I did that right. Cool. We need to we need a way to create curves for the text, and that's going to be a Maya command. So we need to import the Maya commands. And the Maya commands are maya.cmds. With the Maya commands, a lot of the times I'm doing a lot of calls to the Maya commands, and this is pretty long. So you can also do a shortcut for that, which would be as MC. So I'm going to use MC for Maya commands rather than having to type out the whole thing, maya.cmds. So the command for creating text in the environment would be mc dot text with a capital C, C-U-R-V-E-S, text curves. And let's run this here before we do anything else. So we can see by default it creates the word Maya for the text curves that are generated inside of Maya, which kind of makes sense. So we want to be able to control what this actually says, and we want it to be the words hello world rather than Maya. So I'm going to delete this piece of geometry that we have in the scene, or the curves that we have in the scene. And we need to figure out how to manipulate these text curves. If you actually right-click on this and we can go to the command documentation, it will open up the documentation to understand how any line of text actually or code works for Maya commands. Let's try that again. So I have to highlight it. Command documentation. There we go. So here we can see it brings up the text curves, and if we scroll down to the bottom, we have an example of the text that's being generated, or a way to use the code. So here we can see that they imported Maya as CMDS, so they're using CMDS where I'm using MC, but we can actually use this idea where we can choose the font. So F equals Times New Roman, that's the font, and then T is the text, and by default it has Maya. So that gives us an idea of how we want to use this line of code. Thank you, NatureBound, that is very kind of you. So here we can do T equals, and then this is going to be a string, so it's going to be in quotes. It'll be hello world. And let me expand this a little bit more so that it's a little bit easier to see all the code. So we're importing the system, we're importing the operating system, we are importing the Maya commands, and then we can run all this code here. And when we see that in the viewport here, we have hello world in the 3D world. So let me delete this one more time just to make sure that this is working properly. So yeah, it does all the code, and the output line right here is hello world. So we get to see the context of the console up here where it says hello world, and the output line here we have the hello world, and in the 3D world now we have a hello world line. So we can take it a little bit further, because right now this is just a curve. If we were to actually render this, and by default we are in the Arnold renderer, so let's switch over to Maya software. We don't get to see anything right now because it's curves. Curves don't render. Let's put a plane down on the ground just so that we can see that we are actually rendering things in the 3D world space. So we can see that we do see the plane right now, and then we don't have the curves, or we don't have the geometry for the text that's being able to be rendered. Is this how they build the web and sites and stuff? No, this is more of doing like visual effects and things like that for film or for video games. Although there is a new ability in HTML5 that actually lets you have 3D environments. So if you're programming in HTML5, you can actually incorporate 3D into your website. So potentially you can add this into your web development if you wanted to, but for the most part, it's not really done. But there's some cool 3D games that are being created now using the HTML5. Okay, so here with this text, if we wanted to make this a piece of geometry, what we would want to do is go to Surface and Planar right here, and that actually makes it a geometry. And if we were to render this, we can see that it's actually physical geometry that we see in the world. So we need to figure out what the code is for being able to make something planar. And we can see that in our history, it actually outputs anything that we've done right now. And it's this command right here, planar surface, that we need. So we need the geometry selected, or the curve selected actually, and then we need to do a planar surface on it. So let's take these two and delete them. And if I run all this code, you'll see that it actually leaves the hello world selected after it's done all of this. So I'm going to go in at the end of this, and add the new Maya command that we found out, which is still up here, planar surface. So it's going to be mc.planar surface. And we don't have any arguments that we are going to be using right now, but we could add arguments there, kind of in the same way that we did with the text. So if we wanted to, we can actually highlight that command and look at the command documentation. Have a good night or good morning, Nature Bound. It's 2 a.m. here, so it's morning here. Okay, so some flags and things that we can use as options here, so we can give it a name or make it a polygon. Polygon surface would actually be good for what we're working on, but for this basic tutorial, we're not going to worry about it. We just want to get it physically able to be rendered. So, but this is how you would go in and figure out what else you can do with that line of code and how to manipulate it. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all of this and run it again. And we can see that it goes through the whole process and it creates the geometry with that code. Let me undo that and run this one more time just to see in the output window what is the last thing that is visible. It's still hello world, so that is perfect. That's what we want. And we have the 3D text that we can actually render here, and it's physical in the 3D space. Of course, we would want to light and texture and make it pretty so that it works properly. But that is how you end up getting a physical hello world into the 3D world space of Maya. So I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. And if you have any questions later on, make sure to leave them down in the comment section, and I will get back to them for you guys. All right, I'm going to end the stream here. Have a good night, everybody, or a good day, or whenever you guys are watching this.